Well, Leila, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm truly excited to have you here because we're going to talk about something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and particular people in business, think about, but they don't really do. However, before we jump into that, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me here today. It's lovely to be here. So my name's Leila Green, and I run a publishing company with my brother Ali, and we turn entrepreneurs' expertise and experience into best-selling books. So we really specialize on helping entrepreneurs not just create books that are kind of fancy business cards, but are active growth tools that bring readers into their business and that they can really use to elevate their whole business game.
I know. And this is why I actually get so excited about it, because you and I had a conversation before we even decided to do this podcast,
We
because I'm
did.
interested in writing a book. And oh my gosh, I've got so many fears and so many things creeping up. And we'll go into all of that as well, talking about, creating a book. And this is still a dream. And watch this space, people. It is going to happen. And I promise you, with Leila's help, we're definitely going to see this through. But I think before we get into all of these things, I'm a little bit intrigued about your story. How did you get started in business with your brother? What was the kind of idea behind it, and how did that business grow to where you are now?
Sure. So from childhood, I absolutely loved books. Our mum is a teacher, and we had so many books. And she was a children's teacher. She was a school teacher, and we had so many books. And she is still amazing at telling stories. She tells stories in nursery classes, and all of the 2 and 3-year-olds suddenly stop talking, are completely still, and are captivated by what she has to say. So books were a really big part of my life and childhood. And I have lots of happy memories of just hanging out with my book. So it's not surprising, really, that I went on to read English at Oxford University. So as someone who'd kind of always loved libraries and books and being around books and story, that was a chance to kind of take it to the next level. And I was amazed I got accepted. I wasn't expecting that kind of at all, but I'm very grateful for a friend of mine who nudged me to apply. So, I mean, it's always good to have those friends, even now in our circles, who just give you that little nudge and push you for things that you think are out of your reach, because, you never know. And while I was there, I really learned what goes into a really good book, what the components are, how storytelling really works. And also the way I learned it was quite important. So Oxford and Cambridge are quite unique in that they have something called the tutorial system, which is basically where you are in a one-on-one or a two-on-one with a world-leading expert on something. And you'll have a kind of juicy discussion. And obviously, I was going into these things like an 18-year-old who knew that I knew nothing, and I was going up against like a world heavyweight champ. But the best professors, they really engaged with you, and they wanted to have that kind of, they treat you as a peer and have that discussion, kind of like almost two experts chatting. And that's something that's helped me kind of create the coaching style I have with authors, because I still love talking to experts one-on-one in a whole range of fields, and finding out exactly what it is they do. So the love of books naturally led me to want to work in publishing after I graduated. And I did that at a big traditional publishing company, an international publishing company that smashes out bestsellers every week. So there again, I picked up, more of what goes into the recipe for a best-selling commercial book. And then I was at a literary agency. So they represent writers. And the great thing about that was I got to nurture a whole load of writers from different areas, different backgrounds, everything. But then the whole industry just blew up, basically, because we had a financial crisis and Amazon came along. And it's hard to remember a time before Amazon, but there was a time before Amazon where Waterstones was the biggest deal in the publishing world.
Oh, yes.
And even bookshops like Borders that don't exist anymore. This new player entered the game. And a lot of publishing is quite sort of stuffy, old boys network, traditionalist. And the attitude to this new digital opportunity was to push it away by, a lot of the old boys. We've done it our way for 100 years. We're not going to change this. American companies come along. And it just seemed like there was a massive opportunity that wasn't being capitalized. So at that point, my brother and I paired up, and he'd been working also in publishing, but he'd been working on the magazine side with a much more kind of commercial outlook, whereas I'd been working on creating content. And the magazine world had sort of already transitioned to digital before books had. So he was kind of a little bit ahead of me in terms of what was going on in the market. But we managed to kind of come together and use our kind of different skill sets. So mine really about what goes in the book and how to create the best book possible and how to give the reader the best experience. And his was much more like, how do you use this book as an opportunity to grow the brand and to market what you do? And so we kind of teamed up about 10 years ago, much to our mum's delight. And we're still working together now. And I think one of the great things about family relationships is you just tell it like it is. There's no office politics or niceties. It's just, it's your turn to make the coffee, actually, and it works like that. So yeah, that's the short story of how we've got to where we are today.
Oh my gosh, I love your story. And honestly, I didn't even know it was your brother that you teamed up, because I know you teamed up with somebody, and I know, you're running this business together with a partner, but I didn't know it was your brother. So it is just such a lovely story to hear about how the two of you, coming from the same background, but yet with different skill sets, decided like, hey, 10 years ago, let's start our own business together and do this. And you've done some phenomenal things already. I mean, I've met some of the people that you've worked with that just had such great things to say about what you've done and how you've helped them. So for me, it's really exciting to have you here, not just personally, but also for the audience to listen out to what you can tell them they need to do in order to finally get that book out there. Because oh my gosh, yes, it's one of the hardest things when you want something so badly, but there are so many obstacles in the way, so many things that you feel you've got to do first before you can do this, or you've got to become something first before you can do this. And it's not the case. We're our own worst enemy, me included. Definitely. I know that for a fact. So let's talk a little bit about this. I mean, every single one of us has got something. We've got a certain skill set, knowledge, and we can easily turn this into a book. But it's so hard. We don't know how to do this. So from your point of view, what would you say to people who wants to turn their knowledge into a book?
I think the first thing to think of is really to get your mind in gear. And I'm saying this because we've worked with such amazing authors, authors that have delivered incredible TEDx talks and, delivering keynotes and charging, thousands and thousands of pounds for. So these are really big players who, from the outside, you would think that they're really confident people, they've got their stuff together, but imposter syndrome comes and knocks on the door for all authors. There's that little voice that maybe reminds you of a bad mark you got on your homework in school, or a nasty comment an English teacher once said to you, or some criticism someone gave you years and years ago about why what you have to say isn't valid. And this pops up for absolutely every author. And if you're someone, and a lot of entrepreneurs are like this, that are a little bit of a perfectionist, and I'm a recovering perfectionist, as Geeta would say, you want to put something out there that's really good, that is a really good reflection of your brand and what you want to say. And almost that expectation can build it up too much, so that when it actually comes to starting, you feel like you can't live up to that idea of your book. And then what often happens is when people start writing, they're writing a first rough draft, and they're comparing that with a polished, finished version of something on their bookshelf. So, it's the equivalent of like comparing real life with someone's Insta life. You're just at the beginning of the journey. So I think, mindset. And really, if you have happy customers, you can write a best-selling book. I truly, truly believe this. And I've worked with people who have never written before, who are dyslexic, whose skill sets are very practical, people who've come out of the military and been PTs, for example. But if you have something that's good enough for your clients to want to come back and back, and to genuinely leave you good reviews and to genuinely recommend your service, it means you've got something, you know, you've got something inside of you that is worth sharing and that can help people. So it's really important to just tap into that. And also remembering that what is it going to go into the book that positions you as an authority in your niche is stuff you already know. So sometimes authors freak out and they think, oh God, I'm going to have to do this course and I'm going to have to read up on that. And this needs to be really academic and I need to cite all these journal articles and I need some more letters after my name. And it's not true at all. You just kind of need to be yourself, connect to your passion, you know, why you actually care about helping people transform, helping people get the results that you do for them. And, you know, use that as a safety net. It's like you are actually in your comfort zone because you're talking about stuff, you know, with your eyes closed. It's just you haven't done it in this written format before. And it's just that shift into a new format that can sometimes open the door to this self-doubt and other bits of imposter syndrome that we like to kind of keep at bay, and keep remembering that it's all about just sharing your knowledge, what you're good at, and helping people.
Yeah, I love your term and how you said that. Just, you know, it's already what you know. It is just a shift into a different format.
Yeah.
And I love the way you describe it, because I think that puts a little bit of ease and takes the pressure off our shoulders as well, thinking, yeah, actually, you know, I can do this. It's just, there's so much in here. I just need to put it in a different format. So I love how you explain that, because immediately it makes us feel like, I don't need to go and, you know, like we always say, we feel we need to do something first before we can go and achieve this, which is not the case. And I've spoken to so many women in particular who said, oh my gosh, yes, I'd love to do this, but you know what? I'm just finishing my doctorate. And once my doctorate is done and I have those titles behind my name, then I'll go and write my book. I was like, well, why don't you start now? I mean, a silly example is I spoke to a Uber driver on my way back from a meeting and had a lovely conversation with him. And he had the most incredible life story to tell. I mean, it was phenomenal. And he said to me, so many people said I should write this in a book. And I was like, yeah, you should. He's like, one day when I retire. I was like, no, you need to start now. And here I was preaching for him to start writing a book. And yet I'm still holding myself back. So the other thing I want to talk to you about is, obviously, you know, we've seen this a lot in the world where entrepreneurs and where business owners, you know, they get a book published and they use it to grow their business. How is that possible? How would that work for us as individuals? And what is the idea behind writing a book, really?
Yeah, I think the using your book as a growth tool starts right at the beginning. I mean, like anything, the strategy needs to come first. The people that don't get this right, don't really think about their marketing at all, create the product, have a box or garage full of the product, and then think, oh, what are we going to do with it? So that is not the way to do it. It's much better to think about it from the start. And this really starts with understanding your audience. And this is actually quite tricky for a lot of entrepreneurs, because often along the way, they'll have different sorts of customers. And even within their current business, they may have a kind of ascension model where they'll have a VIP or corporate top tier client, and then they'll have other clients along the way. So working out which of those people that you work with you're writing for is really important. And that normally comes down to just which group gives you the most joy to work with. So for some people, just getting people from like 0 to 1 is so rewarding. Like one of our authors, he's a trainer who works with people who are so overweight that they're on surgery waiting lists. So just to get them from needing surgery to not needing surgery and regularly exercising, he finds the most rewarding. Whereas, you know, other trainers might find it more rewarding to take someone from like professional level to Olympic champion. You know, it depends what motivates you, because you know you're going to be putting all your time and energy into this. So which is the group of people that you actually love serving? Like, what gives you the most joy? And then when you've established that, you need to know everything. I mean, I'm sure you appreciate this from a marketing perspective. You need to know where they're at on that journey, what's keeping them up at night, what they want, what their obstacles are, so that you can make sure that you address all of the problems and the fears that they have within the book. And it's also good to think about where you want the reader to go after the book. You know, do you want them to come and join a webinar? Do you want them to come to a webinar? Join your membership, or do you want them to book a call? You know, think about what is a natural step for someone who might have spent, say, £5 to £15 on a product to come into your business. And, you know, don't make that step too big, because they're not going to come from spending £10-15 to spending 20 grand. It needs to be a sensible journey. So just planning really at the beginning and having a bit of strategy around it, which is on the one hand second nature to entrepreneurs who would never launch a product without doing market research, knowing their audience, all the rest of it. But somehow when it comes to writing a book, that part of the mind can shut down a bit. So we need to make sure it's properly rebooted, so that they're not missing opportunities really.
Yeah. And see, it's really interesting that you're saying that, because I think when it comes to writing a book, people would think about the first image that would pop up in their head is just you sitting there typing away behind your screen, is going, yep, okay, just, you know, nail this one, just do it. It's going to take up all of your time, and all you've got to do is sit and write, and you've got to possibly have a retreat and go away somewhere where you have silence and sit and write. You know, like this whole stigma about authors, about writing books. But nobody talks about the beginning stage, which is the strategy, the marketing. And I think
the planning.
You can write books for the rest of your life, but if you don't have a strategy or a marketing beforehand, it's going to be so much harder to write that book, and it's going to be so much harder to publish it as well.
Definitely, because you know, if you don't know who you've written for, it just doesn't land. And in fact, I did a clarity session, which is our kind of initial session where we have a couple of hours brainstorm, with a new client yesterday, and he helps nurses basically leave the NHS and set up private practice. And he helps people who are thinking about leaving their job and starting a business, people who have started a business but it's not going well, people who have opened one practice and are ready to open another. And all of those people have actually got very different problems. And he was trying to write it for everybody, and it wasn't working. So you do, as with any product, you really need to know who it's for. And it's very much about what that audience needs to hear, rather than what you want to say. So it's actually not about you at all. It's much more about them.
Yeah. Oh yes, absolutely. And that's a hard lesson I had to learn as well in business. Because equally that's what you got to do in business. It's always about them. It's never about you. So I love that you brought that up. And what about, you know, using a book? A lot of people talk about using a book to establish authority within your niche, within your market, showcasing you as an expert. How would that come about? Why would you use a book to establish your authority?
Well, I think there's a certain gravitas to a book. I mean, as entrepreneurs, we all know there's so much you can do marketing wise. You could start a YouTube channel, you could do a podcast, you know, there's lots of things that you could do. But books have this sort of long established weight to them. There is something significant about a book. And also our authors report, you know, when they tell people they're writing a book or they've written a book, that is a kind of like instant eyebrow raise, because it says something about them. It says that they're committed to working hard and to producing something substantial that is going to stand the test of time. And there's more pride, I think, around that when they're sharing that with people than there is when it might be something like, oh, I've just done an Insta reel or something. You know, it's something really substantial, and it's your chance to set your stall out and put your philosophy out there. And there are very few other formats where you get so many uninterrupted hours of a potential client's time. And it's a conversation, because, you know, as they're reading your words, if we write them properly, they're hearing your voice as you truly sound in their head. So they feel like they're in dialogue with you. So it's a really unique opportunity to kind of warm up a lead or to really show off what you know, what your vibe is. Also use it as a pre-qualifying tool, because if they don't like your vibe and they don't like your philosophy, they're not going to be the right fit for you anyway. So I think that there is something quite special about the actual creation of a book over another product. And I'm not just saying that as a book lover, but also because it's so impressive, it can do things for you. So it makes pitching a lot easier. It makes getting speaking gigs a lot easier. It means that you can have best-selling author as the first few words on your LinkedIn description. So there are certain things that it can do for you that I think other marketing things just don't have the same weight. And also, if you take the time to create the right book, it will keep working really hard for you for years. So one of our authors, the first author that we worked with, who was an entrepreneur looking to grow her business, Lizzie Edwards, back in 2015, she's still using the book to bring leads into her business every month. And she's created a membership off the back of it. She's done workshops off the back of it. So it's really just the beginning. If you take the time to do that planning and strategy in the beginning, it can kind of serve you for years and years to come, in a way, whereas other kind of marketing platforms or social media platforms might come and go. There's something quite substantial and long lasting about the book.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And it has been such a dream of mine as well. So as you're talking there, I'm just like resonating here to myself, and I'm hoping the audience as well, for those who are so curious and who wants to start writing their own book as well. As you were saying those words, it just rang so true. It's like, yeah, I want to achieve that. I want to have that. I want to be proud of having something that it is not just about building my authority, but it's also about sharing with other people the knowledge. Like you say, it's a conversation you're having with these people through a book. And when people read that, oh my gosh, I did the same. When I read books of established authors and people that I follow in the media, for me, I can hear their voices. And it's honestly, like you said, I'm in a conversation with them, and you really connect with those people so much more. So for me, it is, it's a no-brainer. I think every entrepreneur, actually not just every entrepreneur, I just think anybody who has a story, who has knowledge, who wants to share it, should go and write a book. But there's a wrong way and a right way to do this. And for somebody who's got no idea how to do it, that's why people need to come to you in order to get your advice. So you can show them from the get-go how to do it the right way. Because let's face it, writing a book is not just something that you got to do, it's an investment. And if you want to do it right, you need to get somebody who knows how to do it right. Just like anything, you need to get a coach, a mentor, a teacher, anybody who knows the field of expertise that you want to go into. Get them to help you out. So for those of you listening, if you are interested, or if you have been dabbling with the idea of writing a book, Leila has got something really amazing happening on the 23rd. She's got an amazing webinar happening, and it's all to do with how you can write your book in about 90 days. Did I say that right?
Yeah, so the webinar is going to be on how to turn your knowledge into a best-selling book. And like we said earlier, there's so much good stuff in entrepreneurs' heads. It's actually often a question of editing out and paring down and selecting what actually makes the most sense. But the idea is really that there's so much potential. You already know what you do. You already serve your clients. You already have the passion, the why, the stories. You have all of that good stuff already. And this is just really about showing people how they can transition what's already these amazing assets in their mind into a book that can actually grow their business. So yeah, that's going to be on the 23rd of September at 1:00. And you can register for that at masterclass.get-known.co.uk, or you can just connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm Leila Green, and I can send you the details.
Amazing. So for those of you listening or watching this video, oh my gosh, if you have this idea in your head, or you've been playing with this idea to write a book, you just don't know where to start, this is the starting point. And for me, this is a starting point as well. So you might just see me there. So I definitely would highly suggest that you then go to the webinar on the 23rd of September. The link will be below in my show notes as well. So you can go there, click on it in order to get straight access to sign up for the webinar. Yeah, and I think, with what Leila said here today, oh my gosh, we just need to get out of our own heads and we just need to do it. Honestly, it is... Oh, what an accomplishment it would be to finally have your book out there. I mean, just think about it. It would be one of the most amazing things to share and just to say, I've done this. I've actually got my book out there. I've got so much knowledge in there and I've shared it, and it's true, it's authentic, it's from the heart. I'm sure every single one of us would be proud if that happens, right?
Definitely, yeah.
So again, the details will be below in my show notes to sign up for the webinar on the 23rd of September. And also I will have Leila's LinkedIn details in the show notes, as well as her website. So you can also connect with her there, stalk her a little bit, see more or less what she's doing. And if you have any questions, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to help you out. So send her a message via LinkedIn if you have any further questions. Oh my gosh, Leila, I can only appreciate and say thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and sharing this with us. I'm so excited, just to help you out with this, but equally just to help out the audience to say, hey, get off your butt and start writing. And if you don't know how to do it, come and join us on the 23rd, because I'm sure it's going to be a huge eye-opener. But thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. We'll speak soon.